Welcome to the Business Spotlight podcast. My name is Kay Cote, and I'm your host on today's episode. And today on the show, I have Stuart Mitchell, founder and CEO of Novuson Surgical, as my guest. We're going to be learning about his business, his journey to business ownership, best practices, and challenges that he's faced to give you that inside look to what it's like to build and operate a business. Welcome, Stuart. Thanks for being on the show. Great to meet you.
Nice meeting you as well, Kay, and thanks for having me on the show. Looking forward to it.
Yes, of course. Well, before we dive into all things business, I want to share a little bit about you with our audience. So feel free to take us back as far as you'd like and share a bit about yourself.
We won't go too far back because I'm pretty old. So I actually started my kind of my career in high school as an auto mechanic. After I graduated high school, I met my wife, and she encouraged me to go to college because she thought I was super intelligent. So I went to college, gathered a bunch of degrees up, and most of them at the University of Washington, a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, master's degree in bioengineering, and a doctorate in bioengineering. Um, uh, did My overall expertise is, kind of tissue response adaptation to different types of stresses, everywhere from gross macular my biomechanics to cellular level. Did my doctoral dissertation in stem cell research, making an artificial heart valve. And from there, I went to work at the University of Washington as a research scientist. And in my spare time, I like to play just about any kind of sport. Indoor sport was racquetball, outdoor sport favorite skiing. These days, I golf and cycle and things like that a lot.
Oh my gosh. Well, that is amazing. I'm excited to dive into what you're building and just like to hear about that, especially you worked on a heart valve. Can I
Yes.
ask more about that? That's cool.
Yeah, so my doctoral dissertation was in tissue engineering, and the theory that I had developed, and my thesis advisor was that if you have a structure, a scaffold that mimics the mechanical properties of a heart valve, you can actually grow a artificial heart valve from stem cell cells, and we demonstrated that was possible.
That's incredible. Well, I'm excited to dive in more. Okay, so let's get into Novasan. Okay, when did you start the company? Like, what made you want to start your own company?
Well, I've always kind of been an entrepreneurial type of person. And maybe it's because I don't like working for other people. I don't know. Um, when I was after I graduated from the University of Washington with my doctorate, I went to work at the University of Washington as a research scientist in the Center for Industrial Medical Ultrasound. Working on how to evaluate ultrasound's effect on tissue and doing research related to high intensity focused ultrasound. And one of the things that we came to realize when doing studies with high intensity ultrasound is that the surgical instruments that we used to prepare the animals and stuff that we were doing studies on for surgery actually generated a lot of damage to the tissue, and they generated smoke to the point to where people on neighboring offices would come and complain about the smell and the smoke. And discussions with the surgeons that I was working with, they indicated that, this is actually something they deal with every day, and it turns out it's actually a really large problem in the surgical arena, in that so far that has that 27 states in the US have passed laws requiring hospital systems to mitigate surgical smoke. And the interesting thing is it's, surgical smoke's an annoyance. It's a carcinogen, but the real problem is actually the damage, the devices that the surgeons use, the damage that they cause to the patients is actually the real problem. The surgical smoke is just a byproduct of the problem.
Okay, so surgical smoke is that's if they're using like a laser or something like of that nature that's like cauterizing
Yeah,
or in or
yeah. lasers, radio frequency, which are electricity-based devices, or harmonic devices, which basically use mechanical friction. And, I guess the easiest way to describe the byproduct is, imagine, throwing some chicken or steak on the grill when the grill's nice and hot, and what happens? You burn and char it, you get smoke.
Hmm. Okay, okay, that makes sense. And so tell me about like, is your company mitigating that or how is your company? Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're doing is we've developed what we call direct therapeutic ultrasound. So we put high intensity ultrasound transducers in the end effectors of common surgical instruments, just like the ones that use mechanical friction and the electrical based devices. Um, and we do the exact same thing, except using ultrasound is more efficient way of getting energy into tissue. So we actually don't cause all the collateral damage. We don't burn the tissue. We don't char the tissue. We effectively weld the tissue together with ultrasound, and we can cut the tissue with ultrasound. So it's just a cleaner, safer, more precise technology.
That is incredible. Now, walk me through how you discovered that, or did you discover it? How did you come up with this form of work?
Well, we were working in high intensity focused ultrasound at the time. So that's using big transducers, ultrasound transducers, and treating cancer, stopping bleeding, things like that with ultrasound, which is a common use. But there's a lot of side effects to using high intensity focused ultrasound. And really, we just started having discussions with surgeons about putting the technology of the ultrasound transducers into surgical instruments and seeing if we could get the biological effect that we wanted. And it turns out that we could.
Wow. Okay, what year did you discover this in? Was that the same year you started the company?
Yeah, so we started the company in 2014, but this line of research was, probably about 3 or 4 years prior to that. So we just worked on it over time, received some academic grants, some DoD funding and stuff like that in order to move the technology forward. And then it got to the point to where, the technology was as mature as it could get in an academic environment. So we decided to start the company.
Okay, now that makes sense. Now, when you started the company, were there any other co-founders or any like a board of directors? Like what's your kind of that structure of your company?
Oh, when I started the company, I'm the sole founder. I did bring some colleagues on a couple months after I started the company to help with the technology development. None of them are currently involved with the company, but did have help with certain aspects of the technology development. But I did start the company on my own. And the at the time, what was it called? It was called the Center for Commercialization at the University of Washington. They provide mentors and stuff like that. Now it's called CoMotion. But one of the one of the key things about technologies at the university is if they need to be able to transition them out of the universities, and a lot of times, the people doing the research aren't really interested in starting companies. So they have these entities within the universities to commercialize technology because the technology doesn't do anybody any good if it just sits in the university. So
Yeah.
they
Okay.
they
Awesome.
they work to get the technology out, and I was interested in starting my own business, so that's what we went for.
Wonderful. Now, fast forward to today, how many staff members do you have currently?
Through the pandemic and all this other stuff, we're actually still a pretty small company. We have about 10 people total working for the company, which is what we had prior to the pandemic, when we had a bunch of NIH government grant funding and stuff. But same size of company. We're not really all that big, and we're actually in the process of uh, commercializing our first device.
Oh, is that something you can go into a little bit of detail about?
Yeah, a little bit. So our first device is called the Bessel-Siegler divider. It's a very common surgical instrument. Um, and we're in the process. We've already done all of the design testing and design for manufacturing and stuff like that. And what we're doing now is building devices to do what are called validation studies, which are the studies that the FDA requires in order to get clearance. So medical devices, you typically need FDA clearance in order to sell them and use them on humans.
Okay, that was another question I had was like that process. And this is you said this is your first product or your device that you're working on. So what is the process of getting that approval? Is it years or is it decades? Like how long is that process usually?
Well, it's actually not that arduous of a process for this type of device. This is a very common surgical instrument. So really what we need to show is that the device is safe.
Mm.
And the FDA has certain efficacy requirements. We have to show that it meets those requirements. Overall, the process takes 6 to 9 months. You have certain validation studies you have to do. Um, to demonstrate that you meet the requirements that you've set for the device. Um, so it's not really that long of a process. For Novuson, it's taken us a little while simply because of the pandemic and other related funding type situations and stuff that we've overcome and we're going forward.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so then what does like the next step look like for you once you get the approval? Is it like what does marketing look like in the medical device industry?
Well, for small companies like Novuson, the idea is to get clinical traction, and the easiest way to get clinical traction is to go into ambulatory surgical centers, find surgeon advocates, especially for our technology, it's a surgical device, but find the surgeon advocates, have them start using the technology, have them present to their peers at medical conferences and stuff, and then as you gain uh, clinical traction in a few sites, you grow kind of organically, and then the concept is that the major medical device companies will either come and partner with you or they'll want to acquire you at some point.
Okay, that was my next question is, where is it looking to go? So obviously it's like a B2B. And so would your ideal client or business that you work with be to start off, would it be like a surgical center or a specific surgeon, or how does that all come into play?
Well, a little bit of both. So we target surgical centers, but the surgical centers we're targeting are have specific surgeons for the indications that we want to start with. So one of the things that we're currently developing the plan for is what we want our first in-human studies to be. And what we're looking at is in women's health doing a salpingectomy, which is a elective surgery that has been shown to reduce the risk of ovarian cancer by over 50% by patients that are at risk.
Wow, that's incredible. Are you typically going for, would you say private practices or more of the mainstream medical centers?
Well, initially it's like private practices, simply because the surgeons are usually ones who make the decisions in those practices. So if you're going to the mainstream or the big surgical centers that are associated with hospital systems, you have value committees that you have to go through and stuff, and it's just a longer, more arduous process to get into those centers.
Definitely, that makes sense. Now I kind of want to switch gears and go back to a little bit about you as, as the founder, as a CEO. What does a typical day-to-day look like for you? Are you more working in the business or on the business or a little bit of both?
A lot of both.
A lot of both.
Um, for me, I think I'm in kind of a unique situation because not only am I the founder and CEO of the company, but I'm the person, me and my students are the ones who develop the technology. Um, So when it comes to, building devices, testing the devices, I'm kind of instrumental in that. I, of course, have people that help me with that. Um, but I'm the one writing the protocols for doing the validation studies, the protocols for testing, and everything like that. But I'm also the guy who goes out and does all the fundraising, and I'm the public face of the company.
Now, how is that, wearing multiple hats, especially in the industry you're in?
Uh, well, it takes a lot of time, but fortunately, I'm a person that likes to multitask. I don't like doing one thing all the time, so it keeps me busy. But it's
Good.
uh, it's a lot of fun actually. As far
Good.
as for me, it's a lot of fun. And I think some people probably get stressed at having to multitask too much, but I I like the variety.
Oh, well, that is good to know. And now looking at, I like to share challenges because as business owners, we all face challenges in that process. So, what is something you're currently challenged with in the company?
One of the biggest challenges we have, and it's partly due to funding and just being able to get funding, is actually fundraising. With the pandemic and other things that have happened um, in the U.S. and actually around the world, it's very difficult to raise funding for medical devices. Um, so we've been working hard and long at get funding and we're getting really good traction right now, and it's great because with the funding, we can get through the regulatory clearance process and get on the market.
Definitely. And now um, is that solely where the revenue's coming from currently, or do you have other sources of things that you're working on as well?
Well, we actually have a dual business model. So we have two aspects of our company. One is laparoscopic general surgical devices, which is what we're working on getting regulatory clearance from. The other aspect of our business is we can integrate our technology into any surgical platform. So there's a real interest for our technology in surgical robotics, especially the newer style of surgical robotics that are fully articulating. So they have 360 degrees of articulation in the wristed instrument. So our technology is the only technology that can go into those type of surgical robots that can cauterize and cut tissue.
Wow. See, that's a really cool aspect too, is that you
Yeah.
have, these multiple opportunities. And I think that's a golden nugget of the conversation for other business owners out there is like looking at how you can leverage the talent or
Yeah.
the products that way.
And I mean, it's important to look at different aspects of it. And with us, with the robotics or even endoscopic systems, it's a R&D collaboration, which the companies hire us to build devices for their surgical robot, and then they have the opportunity to license it or generate revenue that way.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, looking at you, mentioned the challenges right now is the funding side of things. So what are some of the systems and like systems that you put in place to help with that?
Oh, as far as fundraising goes, you know, I kind of take a call it a multiple prong approach. Depending on the stage of company, there's different entities that you want to go try to pitch your proposition to get funding, and it depends on how much funding you're trying to raise.
Hmm.
I typically work with angel investment groups. Um, in the last couple of years, I've been talking to a lot of family offices and private equity groups. So there's a lot of interest in our technology in that space as well. And we're getting traction in all those areas. The area that I really don't focus on very much is venture capital. They
Hmm.
typically, it's a little more difficult to get venture capital in this space. But I also work on the strategic collaborations because not only can we collaborate with like surgical robotics companies at some point in the life cycle of the company, you know, the major medical device companies are going to want to acquire our technology because it's a superior technology.
Yeah, that's great. So how are you building these relationships and conversations with investors?
Um, well, a lot of the like angel investors, there's organizations that are angel investor groups. You go out and do presentations to them and stuff like that. You attend events, a lot of networking involved in it, a lot of traveling. With the family offices and strategic partnerships. I don't have a huge network myself of these types of things, but I've been introduced to organizations that do focus on family offices or family office groups and stuff like that. So I participate in those organizations. And as far as strategic partnerships, I rely on business development people that have been in the business development strategic partner space for 30 years. So they're very familiar with it and they help me work with those.
Oh, wonderful. Well, this has been such a great conversation. I've absolutely loved learning about your business, especially, as you're building technology to help people. And so now I want to take us into the fun part of the conversation called our rapid fire Q&A. And I'll be asking you 4 questions. Just feel free to answer very top of mind.
Okay.
All right. Question number 1 is, what is a key to success for you?
Hard work.
Great answer. Number 2 is, what is a piece of advice you have for other business owners?
Don't underestimate how much time it's going to take kids to get something done and make sure you plan for the future.
Mm, it's a big one. Yes. Number 3 is, it could be a book you've read, a podcast, or an article you've read, just something that's resonated with you recently.
Oh, recently? Gosh, I don't think I've read a book recently. Um, the books that always come to mind when I think about things is actually Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, The Quest. You have a goal and you work to achieve it.
That's true. Now, the fourth question, now feel free to take your time a little bit on this one, is, if I gave you a magic wand and you could rapidly improve one aspect of your business, what would it be?
Ooh, um, I would try to make everybody that's working for my company, and I have super people working for me, but as enthusiastic and dedicated as I am.
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing those rapid fire questions with me. Now, before we get to our final question of the day, how can folks get connected with you and your company online?
Well, we do have a website. It's www.novuson.com. Pretty straightforward. Um, and my LinkedIn profile is great as well. Um, so I can be found in both those people. Email is sbmitchell@novuson.com. So those are all great areas. I'm not a real big a social media fan, so I don't really spend time on, TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, but our company does have profiles on all of those things. So if you do a search for Novuson, we're there. Matter of fact, I have several YouTube videos up as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Stuart, for sharing that information. For our final question of the day, what is most inspiring to you today?
What is most inspiring to me today? The thing that actually inspired me all along is, having developing technology that's going to help people. That is what inspires me.
I love to hear that. Well, this has been such a great conversation. Thanks again for sharing your story with me on the show today.
All right. Thanks much, Kay. I appreciate it.